I'm Greg Cord. I'm the Director of the Monitoring and State Improvement Planning Division. I think most of you probably know me by now. This is our one of two, actually, monthly TA calls that we will be having in August. I'm up here teleworking in my upstairs bedroom with my 8-week-old puppy lying between my feet quietly right now.
Is she okay?
Yeah, I think she's okay. I've got my wife here ready to spell me if she gets a little wild. Anyway, thanks for joining the call. And this is one of two calls we're having. This first call that we're doing will focus on two topics, really. We'll be walking you through our websites. We've been doing a lot of work on the websites and want to make sure that everyone is aware of what we've done, where things have moved, where we will be locating resources and documents going forward. I think you'll be pleased with what you see. And then the second part of the call will be kind of a brief walkthrough of the COVID-19 question and answer documents that OSEP has been working on and posted on our website, but we've been releasing those as they are cleared and finished. So this would be our first opportunity to, brief you on all the ones that are currently available. We hope that there will be more. I have two brief announcements before we get started with the main part of the call. First of all, we've been talking about our information collection packages for the Part B and Part C State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report. The clearance process is long, but we are very, very close to the end. The second comment period, which was a 30-day period, ran from July 10th through August 10th, so that closed on Monday. We are now in the process of reviewing final comments to determine whether there are any additional adjustments or revisions that we want to make in the package prior to finalizing it. We will then be working with our Office of Management and Budget to finalize on their end, and we're expecting that the packages will be approved by the end of this month prior to the expiration of the current package, which is, I believe, on August 31st. So we're going to meet our deadline here. It's been close, but we want to thank everyone who took the time to read through the packages and make comments on the Federal Register. They were very, very thoughtful and helpful as we finalized the package. Second package that I want to talk about is the Part C application. The 60-day notice was published on July 10th. Soliciting comments. The proposed application includes some minor revisions, so no big changes from the current application. There's still some time to make comments on that if you're interested. It will be available at regs.gov through September 8th. So thanks, everyone. And at this point, I will turn the call over to Diana Yu. Diana?
Thank you, Greg, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us this Thursday afternoon. My name is Diana Yu, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Nito Solomon and Alexis Lessons to present some exciting news to you. And I really want to take a moment to appreciate them and everyone who have been helping us with this website migration project, which has been a huge undertaking. We've been signaling for some time now that some of the resources that were previously on the GRADS360 site would migrate to a new web presence, and we're excited to share some of that work today. So next slide, please. So why are we transitioning? As we mentioned during, I think, as early as last year's leadership conference, we talked about the new SPP APR reporting tool, how our previous contract had concluded, and we have since transitioned to our new contract with IES, which includes reporting under the EDFACS Metadata and Process System, or EMAPS. And a second part of that is a Communities of Practice site, which is housed on GRADS360. So it looks like the site that you currently know that we always have referred to GRADS360, but it will only include SPP APR related content. So today we'll share with you what will remain on the GRADS site and also where you can find other information. Next slide, please. So what will stay? As we mentioned, it will be SPP APR resources only. So information such as the broadcast from the Partner Support Center, or PSC, that you generally get through your emails, will be cross-posted here. Any webinars, guidance, as you see from this display here, especially guidance related to reporting, will remain. Next slide, please. Additionally, you'll continue to find your SPP APRs from FFY 2013 through 2017. We call this the heat map, but for both parts B and C, those historical documents will continue to stay up on this website. However, we highly encourage states to download them, these prior year's APRs, for safekeeping and record retention requirements, and future APRs will be posted on another website, which Alexis will talk about in just a minute. But we do want to assure you that this historical information can continue to be found here. Next slide, please. So where will this information go? And want to take a minute here also to just acknowledge all of our partners, those from the GRADS360 and EMAPS work. We can't do that reporting piece without you, and certainly Renee, Bradley, and Darling from RTP, who have graciously allowed us to have some space on the Ideas That Work site. And of course, our partner who's on the call here today, Jen. Also internally, we have Paul Steen and Kristen Kushiyama and Jeffrey Rhodes, who have really helped us with the information that will now be on the IDEA website. So I want to take a step back and also mention that we purposely chose these two sites because, for instance, the Ideas That Work site, if we post information there about, let's say, indicator B4 for discipline, if you do a search for discipline, you may stumble upon additional resources by our TA providers that might help you think about that indicator more broadly. And so a lot of the information that our TA providers post that we collaborate with, you'll find on that site. And then for the IDEA website, that will mostly be content that OSEP develops or the department issues. And this will help us better track our content on an ED server. So I will turn it now over to Mito to walk you through the OSEP Ideas That Work site. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Next slide. Now we will walk you through the OSEP Ideas That Works programs area. To the left is an image of the OSEP Ideas That Works landing page. On the upper right-hand corner are 3 horizontal lines. Clicking on them will open up the menu. And then clicking on the program areas will open up a second page that will access all of the other pages that we'll discuss today. To the right is an image of the program area landing page. And today we're going to be walking through the MSEP page, which is the icon on the bottom left. Next slide. So this is the MSEP program page. Here you will be able to access TA-centered developed content, OSEP events such as TA calls and conferences. We will now explore the 2 icons to the left. It's important to also point out that the icon to the right is for the MSEP collaboration space. Additional information on that site will be provided at a later date. Next slide. So here to the image to the left is of the OSEP National TA calls and related resources page. TA calls with descriptions are listed here and hyperlinked to their recordings. And the image to the right is of the information and resources for grantees page. There you will be able to search for TA-centered developed resources, as Diane mentioned. It's also important to note that the icons for these, so the image to the left, the TA calls, is the headphones, and the one to the right for resources is an open book. Alexis Lessons is now going to walk us through the IDA site and changes there. Next slide.
Thanks, Mito. On the IDEA website, you will now be able to find the OSEP developed content that was previously on GRADS360. OSEP, grant application, and fiscal resources can be found here along with the DMS letters. The SPP APRs from federal fiscal year 2018 will also be posted on the IDEA website. With the SPP APRs, OSEP will only be posting the state attachments that were 508 compliant. Any attachments that were not 508 compliant will need to be posted to state websites. Next slide, please. To locate the OSEP developed content for the SPP APR, OSEP, grant applications, DMS, and fiscal, you'll need to go to the sites.ed.gov/IDEA page, select the Resources tab, and then select Resources for Grantees. This will bring you to the page on the right of your screen. Next slide, please. From this page, you'll be able to navigate to resources for each content area. The SPP APR tab has links to take you to additional resources and the eMAPS reporting platform. The SPP APRs from FFY 2013 through 2017 will continue to be housed on GRADS360, and there is a link to take you to that page. Again, the SPP APRs from FFY 2018 will be posted on the IDEA website with the 508 compliant state attachments. Any attachments that were not 508 compliant will need to be posted to states' websites. Next slide, please. The OSEP tab has OSEP developed resources for Phase 3 of the OSEP template, and the Phase 1 evaluation tools for Part B and C. The Grants tab has the most recent grant application package, along with the resources for IDEA formula grants. All future formula grant application packages will also be posted here. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Diana.
Thank you, Alexis. Next slide, please. The final two tabs you'll find on our website are for DMS and Fiscal. For DMS, or Differentiated Monitoring and Supports in particular, you'll find our current DMS reports in addition to prior monitoring system reports such as verification visit letters, fiscal monitoring, and other content of historical nature. Additionally, the final tab, Fiscal, has a lot of rich resources regarding fiscal monitoring, excess costs, and other fiscal-specific content. And there are some new tools there as well, which we will highlight at another time. But just wanted to draw your attention to the similarities in what was on GRADS360 and that you had those tabs at the top for OSEP, grants, and APR. And we moved over all of the relevant and current content over to this website. We also want to point you to another section of the website, which we hope you're more familiar with, which is the topic areas. Next slide, please. So under the resources for grantees, which is where you found our information that was previewed just a few slides ago, there is the topic area section, which has been there for quite some time. We have worked on adding a lot of current updated content on that site. So hope that you will continue to look there and we'll continue to populate that site with more content. And I do want to address that there was a question that came in the chat, when will the FFY 2018 APRs be posted? We've been working really hard, especially on the 508 compliance conversion, and we're about ready to post those. So shortly is what I'll say, and certainly we will send an email message to let you know when they're actually on the website. Also, we're interested in collecting feedback and any suggestions or enhancements. So please feel free to email me directly. I send you the links for the registration for these TA calls, or send your comments, questions through your state contacts, or state leads, or through the chat today. But now I will turn the presentation over to Kate Moran and Matt Schneer in our office, who will walk you through the COVID-19 resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's staying safe and being well. I'm going to speak briefly about our process internally of tracking and responding to the many inquiries that we have received related to the COVID-19 pandemic that we're currently facing. If you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. So just a brief overview, we received over 150 inquiries related to the current pandemic. And we had a rapid response team internal to MSIP and actually brought more broadly with OSER, so RTP was participating, our RSA. But our MSIP side, in working to address, respond, and develop our responses to all of these inquiries, our team had decided to kind of bucket them into different topic areas and ultimately develop some Q&As that could answer the questions that we were receiving, because we tended to get similar questions under these various topics, and rather than sending out the multiple emails with the same information, we thought other states and stakeholders would have similar questions. So the best way to really address it was to develop some Q&A documents. If you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. So we did receive inquiries from a variety of stakeholders, states, our TA center providers, different organizations, parents, so a real wide variety. And the questions that came in fell under topics like dispute resolution, procedural safeguards. We identified 3 areas in fiscal that we wanted to focus on: use of funds, Part B and Part C, IDA fiscal flexibility. And then we have a period of availability waivers that were posted related to Part B. We also have developed one dealing with evaluation and timeline for Part C. And in development, we're currently working on a period of availability waiver document related to Part C, and those would be for ed lead agencies. So there'll be more information coming out about that one that's currently going through clearance, and so that will be posted. I want to share also that the Q&As that we developed really were created to speak to the various regulations that are connected to the topics, and then whatever flexibilities we could identify within those regulations that might be relevant to these inquiries and the current pandemic that we're facing. So if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great, Jennifer. And these slides will be posted, so I've hyperlinked in here to the various guidance documents that we have. So when the pandemic began, the first wave of guidance that went out to states was a Q&A that went out in March 2020. And then we had a supplemental fact sheet that was developed in conjunction with the Office of Civil Rights, and that went out in March 21st. So those 2 documents have some really good starting points to look at, to review, if you haven't accessed those already. If you want to go to the next slide, Jennifer, that'd be great. So dispute resolution, do you want to click on one of those links, Jennifer, or yeah, that'd be great. Let's see if it'll go. So this is going to take you to our sites.ed page, which Diana was highlighting before. And on each one, there is a listing of all of these Q&As, but if you want to click on View PDF, that would be great. So each one of our Q&A documents has a similar intro area that will include the 2 websites that have all of these Q&As posted, and then any future Q&As that we might have coming out. So they're both on the sites.ed.gov topic area -COVID-19, and then it's also on the ed.gov coronavirus page. So with dispute resolution, we were really looking at questions related to resolving disagreements, is there flexibility with the 60-day time limit for state complaints, mediation procedures, things like that. So you can go through these topic briefs for Part B and Part C. There is 7 questions on the Part B one, and I think that there's a commensurate amount on the Part C Q&A for dispute resolution as well. So if you want to go back to the slide deck, Jennifer, we can go on to the next one, which deals with procedural safeguards. Actually, there's 9 on the Part C. Yeah. We can go back to the slide deck, sorry. All right, so moving through procedural safeguards, you don't have to click on each one of the links, it's okay. This one we developed to identify and respond to inquiries related to digital signatures, parental consent, when do you have to provide the procedural safeguards. We received a lot of questions about electronic signatures and how, if those are acceptable or not. Prior written notice, we did receive a lot of questions about that. How do you provide that when facilities are closed, things like that. And so you'll want to look at those for B and C. Access to educational records is another topic that's covered on that Q&A. And so both B and C identify slightly different content, but I would definitely encourage folks to check those out. If you want to go to the next slide, we're going to move to Fiscal, and I'll turn it over to Matt. He's just going to talk about the next 3 slides, which deal with period availability waiver, our use of funds, and then the IDA fiscal flexibility.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Schneer. I'm one of the Associate Division Directors in OSEP, and among my other responsibilities is working with the Fiscal team. And I want to give a shout out to the Fiscal team for putting together the information that we're going to talk about here, particularly Charlie Nisley, Susan Kaufman, Susan Murray, Jennifer Finch, and Lynn Fairfax for their work on the different documents we're going to talk about here. This first one, the period of availability waiver, under the CARES Act, the Secretary was given the authority to grant waivers to the period of availability requirement, meaning that we could extend it for 1 year for FFY 2018 funds for IDA Part B funds. Most of you from Part B agencies are aware of this. We have actually approved most of our grantees. I think we're up around 40 or so to have this extra year to obligate their funds. If you haven't taken advantage of this and you're interested in doing so, I would urge you to do so as soon as possible. Those funds period availability does end on September 30th, so we would like to get that done as most as possible. It's a pretty streamlined process. It doesn't take us very long to do. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your state lead or to myself directly. We can move on to the next slide, please. The second slide talks about 2 Q&As that we put together for Part B and Part C respectively, and they look just like what you saw Kate showed you with the first one, the same formatting. We don't need to go into them directly, but these Q&As for Part B and Part C take you through the relevant authorities and requirements that cross over from uniform guidance and other federal requirements to IDA, as well as some OMB guidance. And each of the Q&As for Part B and Part C, I think, have 3 questions. The Part B one focuses on, first question focuses on how you can use, LEAs can use IDA funds to address issues that are particularly relevant during the pandemic emergency in terms of use of funds for virtual learning, remote learning, and a variety of other things, including equipment and other things like that. The second Q&A in Part B focuses on the use of state level funds for similar purposes. And then there's a third Q&A that looks at particularly the requirements to use IDA funds for equipment, which does require prior approval and gives you the information for that. And Part C is similar in that it is addressing these same kinds of issues. Obviously, we don't have subrecipients or LEAs in the Part C world, but we're looking at the very similar types of issues. And in each of them, what we're trying to do is talk about within the existing requirements, what types of flexibilities you have to try to use the funds in a way that will be responsive to the needs that you're addressing during this very difficult circumstance. And I would just note that we have had a number of very interesting and useful conversations from our perspective, and I hope from state perspective, with states where we can think creatively about how to address some specific questions with this. So if that's something you're interested in, please let your state lead know or myself, and we can certainly pursue that further. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. The final slide here is the IDA fiscal flexibilities for Part B. This Q&A is specific to IDA fiscal requirements, specifically to state maintenance of financial support or MFS, local educational agency maintenance of effort or LEA MOE, and excess cost. And it simply talks about the existing flexibilities that exist within those different areas for states to address this. As we know, we got a lot of questions about how issues around the pandemic can be addressed. There are budget shortfalls, school closures, all sorts of other things. So these Q&As are meant to try to talk about the existing flexibilities within each of those. So that's what we have at this point. We hope you find these useful. And again, I encourage you to reach out if you want to explore them further. Feel free to contact me directly at matthew.schneer@ed.gov if you have any questions. Thank you. And I think that.
You want to go to the next slide, Jennifer? Thanks. So the next one that we developed is a Q&A related to evaluation and assessment timelines for Part C. And that one deals with, we discuss the 45-day timeline requirement and flexibilities within that when face-to-face meetings are not a possibility in the current pandemic that we're living under. Interim IFSPs, can state LAs and their local EIS providers use interim IFSPs? We talk about that. The third question deals with state lead agencies or their EIS providers conducting evaluations. When staff cannot conduct in-person meetings or conduct home visits due to the pandemic, which I know a lot of states are facing, when you can't complete components face-to-face with an evaluation, how do you manage that? And so those questions are addressed in that Q&A to the extent that we can. And again, you can access that on the, if you want to go to the, oh, it's not the next slide, but on the coronavirus page or our sites.ed.gov page. If you want to go to the next slide. These are just two other resources that came out in March, our OSEP March through July OSEP updates, early learning newsletters. Those are also resources for you to access that information. And I would echo what Matt shared, that as you're having questions that maybe come up that you're not sure if they're addressed in the Q&A, or you're trying to figure out how to work through a scenario, we definitely recommend reaching out to your state lead. They can kind of gather together a small group of us to troubleshoot those questions, think about how to address them. And I know, especially with Fiscal, some of the calls we've been on, it is better to identify it beforehand to try to ensure that the correct systems are in place rather than on the back side of it. If you want to go to the next slide. So again, these are where all of these current documents are these Q&As, so you can access that information. We still are developing a few, so those will hopefully be coming out to address questions that we've been receiving. We are continuing to receive questions, as I'm sure you at the state level are as well. And we're trying to be as responsive to those inquiries as we can. And I think that's it. If you want to go to the next slide. Yep. So I'm not seeing questions in the chat or the question section. So if folks do have questions, you can type them in there. If we can address them, we will. Or the chat, I guess. All right, well, I'll turn it back over to Diana and Greg. Oh, I see a question. Oh, there we go. So some of the guidance documents maybe addressed in some current Q&As that we are working on. There's a question related to compensatory services. If you have a specific question, I definitely recommend reaching out to your state lead so they can follow up internally. If some of our upcoming Q&As don't address your question. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Okay. You're welcome, Crystal. All right, I see another one. Is there any guidance on timelines for Part C transition indicator 12? If it's not addressed directly in the evaluation timeline, I'll look at that one, Ashley, and you can reach out to your state lead as well. Estimated time for the period of availability for Part C would probably be in the next couple of weeks. So the question was, when will the next Q&As come out? Estimated. So I'd say in the next couple of weeks. Okay. We'll wait a few minutes in case other folks have other questions. The PowerPoint and recording is typically posted by the next day, right, Jennifer? I think it's a day or two.
Yeah, in the next day or two, they will definitely be up on the OSEP Ideas That Work website.
Yep. Okay. I don't see any other questions, so nope, there we go. Will OSEP address ideas for equity in future Q&As? How to help support this in our work and at state levels? I think that through individual state lead work, I'm not sure that more broadly it would be addressed in a large Q&A, but we'll definitely take that question back and see how we can incorporate that. That is a big question. You're right, Kat. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, just waiting to see if there's any more questions in the chat. All right. Diana and Greg, you can probably wrap it up. I'm not seeing any more coming in. If you do have questions, feel free to email your state leads or kate.moran@ed.gov. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Diana, did you have anything else? I had one kind of final comment here before we wrap up.
No, just that thank you for everyone's time, and we look forward to you visiting our website and again your feedback on any improvements. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Diana. And I want to thank all the staff who were involved in today's call, putting this PowerPoint together, as well as all the incredible work that led up to us being able to present this. It's terrific, major step forward. So thank you all. I mentioned at the beginning of the call that this is one of 2 national TA calls that we will be holding in August. You have experienced the first, and I didn't mention what the second one is, so let me do that now. Second call will be the rollout of our differentiated and monitoring and support system 2.0. We have been talking about this and intended to roll it out earlier this year, but due to COVID-19, we felt like it was not a good time for everyone to really focus on that information. But now that we're a little further down the road, we want to share that with you. So we will be rolling our new DMS system out on Wednesday, August 26th. Please note that this is a Wednesday. Typically, our TA calls are on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. This will be on a Wednesday due to some other scheduling issues that we had. We'll be sure to be sending out a notice, a reminder to you in advance of the call, but we do hope that you will be able to participate and hear what we've got planned. So I think that wraps it up for us today. Thanks again to all of you for taking time to listen. Thanks, Jennifer Reed, as always, who does such a splendid job of running all the technology to make these calls go so smoothly. And I'm going to wish everybody a good day.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the event for today.